about life and stuff, and I went on a couple tangents about, you know, harvesting your own meat and goats and stuff like that, but nobody really seemed to mind. So yeah, everyone got to listen to my insanity for a little bit, and they seem to be entertained by it.
And it's really exciting to have Ronda here tonight. I have been a huge Ronda fan since I can remember. I don't know what the first fight was, but I think it lasted about 18 seconds, and I had flown all the way to Vegas to see it, and it was over in a mind-boggling amount of time. It was over with such conviction and ruthlessness and clarity of purpose that I created a real legitimate space in my heart for Ronda in that moment. I developed a friendship with her, and several years ago we talked about making a movie together, and about 3 months ago we wrapped up the film in Colombia, and it was a thrill for me to really get to know this remarkable human being, Ronda Rousey, everybody. We were talking upstairs about the fact that you didn't speak till you were 6 years old, and you said that was something that had worked out to be an advantageous disadvantage. What does that mean?
I was born with a umbilical cord around my neck, and it gave me a speech motor disorder called apraxia, which pretty much was, there was a disconnect between my mind and my mouth. And I knew what I wanted to say, but when I spoke, it came out as like gibberish. So I thought I was saying what the word was that I meant to say, but you were nothing, pretty much. And so that it taught me a lot about having to listen, and it actually, I think, made me better at analogies and metaphors, because once I was able to speak and I didn't have very many words, I would have to relate things to the words that I had. And so I did a lot of making comparisons instead of being able to just say what I meant. And it ended up, I think, making me better at being able to speak when I got older, because I had to overcome that, even though I went through years of speech therapy and people thinking I was deaf and autistic and all kinds of other things. I am very grateful for it now. I never knew that I had a speech disorder growing up. I found out later. I didn't even know that I had a problem. My mom tells me stories that I would come up to her like, Mom, I'm dumb. I don't have the words. Jennifer, Maria are smart, they have the words. I'm dumb. I don't remember saying this. She said that I said this to her, but she wouldn't allow me to believe it. And so I always thought that I was super smart and I was going to be super rich and successful, even though I thought I was going to be Shamu's trainer, and they don't make much money, but you know, like in my mind, it was all going to work out and it was all going to be great. And anything that I wanted to do, I could be the best in the world at it, because my mom would look at me and be like, someone's got to be the best in the world. Why not you? And she was a world champion in judo, and the first ever. It's so easy to think you can be the best in the world at something when there's a world champion walking through your living room. I threw a lot of her lessons back at her later on, but one of my favorite lines from her is, there's no history of anything happening until it does, and then there is. It kept me from letting any standard that was already out there hold me back, and I started doing MMA because I wanted to do MMA, and I couldn't think of any other career that I wanted, and so I wasn't trying to change the world, I was just trying to create the job that I wanted. I always think that I'm one decision away from anything that I want to do in my life. And if, like say, just take a diet, for example, right? You're on a diet. I decided to be on a diet. That's it. I decided to be on a diet when there's a brownie around. I decided to be on a diet when people are passing around cake. I decided to be on a diet, you know, every single time that something comes my way. If you're being tempted, then you didn't really make that decision, you know, and so I believe in the power of my own decisions. If I make a decision, that's it. And it's really just that simple. And it's funny because I didn't used to know that. I I had problems with bulimia growing up. I used to cut weight a lot, and I thought if I wasn't exactly like 63 kilos or 57 kilos, that I was an ugly piece of shit. I don't know why. I guess 30 years of cutting weight, that was just the way that it was. And I was telling somebody about it, how my problems with, I just couldn't help it. I would just obsess over food, and then I would eat a little bit, and I would make a deal with myself, like, okay, I'm gonna run for this later. And then I'd eat a little more, okay, I'm gonna run this much more. And then I'd eat a little more, and I'll be like, okay, I'll run and I'll do this. And then it would get late, and I'd be like, oh my God, I don't have the time to do that. I'm so tired. I'm like, oh, well, I already ruined it for today. And then I'd eat everything possible, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm the biggest piece of shit ever. Now I'm just gonna have to go throw it up, so I don't feel like a big piece of shit all night. And I was trying to explain to a friend, like, you just need, like, why don't you stop? Why don't you just stop? It's not that easy. And then I remember that they said that, I don't even know, like, they meant to be this poignant in that moment, but they're like, yeah, it is that easy. It's a decision away. And that really meant a lot to me. I'm like, wow, you're right. Like, it's not like this big complicated thing that I'm making up to myself. I'm one decision away from changing my own life. And I tried to make it into this big giant thing of like, I need the nutritionist, and I need therapy, and I need this, and that. And I was like, no, I just need to decide that I'm done. And once I decided it, I was done. And yeah, because of that decision, I had other problems come up. I decided I was done, and you know what? I was just fighting at 63 kilograms, and I couldn't make the weight anymore. And I missed weight for the first time ever. And I thought it was the worst thing, and USHO was going to suspend me, and I was getting fined all kinds of crazy amount of money because they sent me to Paris to fight, and I didn't make weight, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I completely cut off contact from everybody, and I was trying to do everything I could to cut weight all week in Paris. And then I found like a club med somewhere to work out in plastics. I was working out in plastics, and they kicked me out, and they said I was not hygienic, and I had to go. You are not hygienic. You have to go. And so then I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And then I had to go fight in Vienna, and I was like, how am I gonna make weight? Okay, I want to get to the hotel and run in the hotel. Like, and then I got to the hotel, and the gym was closed. I'm like, shoot, the gym's closed, so I have to go around the hallway. And then like, I finally got the courage to call my mom after a week because I was so scared to call my mom. And she was like, just, there's no one in 70 kilos next week. Just move to 70 kilos and just eat whatever you can, and we'll figure it out. And on my first try, I won a World Cup at 70 kilos, and then I was suddenly ranked first in the country at 70 kilos. And yeah, I was one decision away to end bulimia. And yes, I couldn't be 63 kilos anymore, but it pushed me into being 70 kilos. And because I was I was this head shorter than everybody in the division, and it was the disadvantage for me to be smaller, but I ended up winning an Olympic medal. And I ended up overcoming bulimia. And I ended up it being the best decision possible for me. And it was because because I realized it wasn't as complicated as I was making it. And so, yeah, it was just one of those progression of events where I'm like, oh my God, everything is terrible, and this is the worst thing that ever could possibly happen. But yeah, there was no magical sauce or whatever to end my eating disorder. I just decided it was over. And I just kind of relate that with everything else in my life. Like every other problem that's in my life, I'm like, what decision can I make to end this? And once I find out what that decision is, I stick to it. I believe in my own decision-making ability, and that's it. And when that's it, that's it. And yeah, I think that a lot of people think they've made a decision when they're actually still wavering on it. And once you make it and believe it and stick to it, you have to make that decision over and over again every day. Not just, it's easy for when I'm sitting in front of you being like, hey, do you want to be a world champion boxer, you said? How about 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow? Do you want to be a world champion boxer at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow? How about when there's not a room full of people watching you? Are you still going to want to be a world champion boxer then? Are you still going to want to be a world champion boxer when all your friends are going out to a party on Friday and you're going to train? Are you still going to want to be a world champion boxer when you have to choose, between, what if you have to choose between your education or boxing at some point? What do you have to choose between your dream job or boxing at some point?
Boxing is my dream job.
Well, I'm just saying that decision you have to make a decision over and over and over and over again, and it's not always going to be as easy as right now. And so believe in that decision. And you know, if it ends up not being the thing for you, don't beat yourself up for it. You know, you're on a journey of self-discovery, and maybe finding out that boxing isn't for you is part of that journey. Or maybe even me saying this right now and making you doubt yourself at another time when you're really meant to be a boxer. You know, so
When we started really spending time with each other on a film set, I would watch you quiet. You were very quiet. You were often very quiet. You were watching. Your eyes were always wide open, and I would, be going about my day, and I would note that you were. You seem to be like really, really observant. When you said advantageous disadvantages, I think the ability to shut up, to not talk so much, to not need to fill silence with words is a wonderful skill. Is that accurate? Is that something is that something you think about? Can you trace it back to those first 6 years?
I think that's one of the things about, that it taught me, was being able to listen and be comfortable with being silent. And it also taught me to want to communicate with people, like physically. So I use a lot of hand gestures when I talk. It also brought me to judo because I was not very good at talking to other kids. And my mom put me, she thought judo would be good for me because I would have to communicate with another kid. And it didn't all have to be verbal, we could communicate physically. And then that kind of taught me that, like the way that I would think of fighting and think of judo was like having a conversation with another person. And so that's how I would be able to communicate was physically. And then when I was able to talk, then I had that too, So it was like I gained all these other skills on the way to attaining something that was just easy for everyone else. Yeah, I say all the time that sports are a metaphor for life. And I can relate almost every lesson that I learned the hard way through sport is a lesson I didn't have to learn the hard way in my life. And so it really kind of, I think, matured me faster than I would have otherwise. It was I was getting a lot of life lessons very quickly that I would have to have gotten a whole bunch of different places. But I'm on my third career now, and I'm 31, and yeah, I'm getting up there. I'm in my third decade, and but I feel like I'm 70 from all the experience that I've got. But yeah, I think that sports is kind of like a shortcut to learning things, maybe the hard way, but not the hardest way.
You gave, first of all, an incredible, she's a really good actress. Very, very authentic and real and natural. And I appreciate that very much, and I hope you all will see the film and agree that I'm not just lying and kissing Ronda's ass about that. But what's not up for debate that you gave me was an understanding about how to survive really bad zombie apocalypses, for example. If there was the one key piece of information that you gave me, it would be about goats. The value of goats.
A lot of people don't really think of doomsday prepper. I think of it as a very positive outlook on the world. Some people think it's negative, but I think as being like self-proclaimed genetic cream of the crop, an Ovarian gold mine such as I am, I owe it to humanity to survive the end of the world. Right? Right? It's my responsibility. And instead of just, my apocalypse plan being like a handle of alcohol and tears, which is a lot of people's plans. I was like, I'm gonna make it. Like, if anyone's gonna make it, I'm gonna make it. And so I just want to be ready, just in case. The goats, they're pack goats. They're not to be eaten, but they're actually the most, I think, best doomsday animal that you can really have.
The best doomsday animal you could have.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, in my opinion, because we have pack goats, so they like carrier stuff. And but you can milk a goat, you can eat a goat, you can have a goat keep you warm, yeah, they do all of it. And when all of the currency has been inevitably collapsed and people realize it's basically nothing but debt and the gold standard's been gone for a long time now. The only currency that's going to really matter is goats. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I think it's a good thing to have goats, and they're pretty awesome. If you never had a goat, you're missing out.
spending time with you guys, I always feel like my self-reliance is not where I want it to be.
Well, I think that self-reliance and independence is real freedom. And that we forego our freedom for convenience a lot of the time. And I think it's more important for people to know how to feed themselves than to know how to do trigonometry. Because, you know what, I got an A in trigonometry. Help me 0, okay? Yeah, thank you. I think that a lot of these skills that were commonplace are every generation, we know less and less and less of them because it makes people money for us not to know. You know, every single person in here, your survival plan is a grocery store. If all the grocery stores closed, what would you do? And like, that's a scary thought. Like, you are dependent on somebody bringing food there and having it ready for you to live. And if it wasn't there, you wouldn't know how to feed yourself. And that's a scary thought. I'm afraid of that, you know? So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn how to compost. I'm gonna grow some stuff. And, you know, like, my husband, he hunts for us, and we just got ourselves a steer to raise ourselves a steer, and we got chickens to make our own eggs, and we're trying to, it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of effort, but we're trying to learn how to do it, and it's, and the journey of actually figuring out is what's really fulfilling and what's really fun, and actually having a tie to your food and knowing where it comes from, and taking emotional responsibility for how you choose to live your life, you know? If you choose to eat meat, you are killing something every single time that you eat it. But you should be aware of what your life choice is. Let's say you eat 1 cow a year. Every year you eat 1 cow. And let's say that cow that you eat next year, right now is living knee deep in his own shit and suffering and anxious every day, pumped full of anxiety hormones, pumped full of antibiotics, and when it goes to the slaughterhouse, it's freaking out, smelling blood, all this stuff, and it's going through all this endorphins in his body are pumping when it's dying. And then you're eating that. Now imagine instead of that happening, you could take that animal, raise it in your backyard, give it a life worth living, make sure that it can, you know, have a respectable life, even love it and be nice to it, and then have the courage to look it in the eye and kill it yourself. Then try to throw a hamburger away. That's when it becomes your animal. When you kill that animal yourself, it becomes your animal and you become responsible for it. I think when people put more thought on being sustainable and trying to do as little harm as possible and making that more of a priority than, you know, getting the next crazy car or whatever. Like, I could buy a whole bunch of things, but what's luxury to me and what's freedom to me is being independent and finding a way to live off the land and do no harm, as opposed to buying as many mansions as I can and being on cribs.